Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello everyone. It's so exciting to see you. I see there's a lot of people gathering and can't wait for this to start. Same here. I'm a fangirl. With who is coming, she's amazing. She's a friend for a long time, and I really love what she does. So without further ado, Christine, welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. I'm so excited. You're a repeat guest. You're a very special person. And for those people who somehow never met you, please introduce yourself.
Oh, well, thank you, Olga, for having me on the show. And thank you, everybody, for coming here live today. I love seeing the comment stream. So in case you don't know me, I'm Christine Uri. I'm a legal executive committed to making companies more profitable, human-centric, and sustainable. I was previously the Chief Legal Officer and Chief Sustainability Officer at NTMLS, a company committed to fighting climate change. And today I work with legal counsels, general counsels in an advisory capacity on environmental social governance issues, with right now a particular focus on AI governance, given it's important in the world. So I write, I speak, and I'm on LinkedIn a lot, so you can follow me there.
You are definitely prolific. As I said, I'm a fangirl. I love what you do. Before you became general counsel and became very well known in ESG space, what was the scenic route? Just put us situate us in your career journey so we have perspective and understand where you come from.
Absolutely. So my career followed a pretty standard in-house trajectory until this last move into entrepreneurship. Oh, I graduated from law school, and then I worked in a clerkship, and then I was in a law firm for a long time. I was in a law firm for 9 years doing, standard business work, M&A, finance, IP, all of those lovely things. After that, I went in-house. I really wanted to make a transition where I was part of an organization, part of a team that had a more common goal. And I chose to work at a company that was very much focused on changing the world for the better. So at the NG Impact, where I worked, we worked with Fortune 500 companies to help reduce their energy use and their carbon footprint. I started there in 2013, and I was there for 10 years. I started as corporate counsel and ended as chief legal and sustainability officer. Along the way, I did many things. I was one of the kind of multi-hat GCs. I ran HR, I had health and safety at our real estate portfolio, and sustainability. So I had a chance to touch ethics and privacy and human rights and carbon, water, waste, doing a number of different tasks. And eventually, I rolled that up into ESG, which is the area that I'm known most for on LinkedIn, where I advise counsel. So in 2023, I decided to start an entrepreneurial journey. I now have my own company where we do consulting work. And, I am just constantly one of those people who builds and evolves and always creating my next chapter.
I love it. The multi-hat and the next chapter creator. What a wonderful description of you, Christine. As you mentioned, you are well known for your ESG work. I'm a fan for following you for that exact reason. I've learned so much about it. This is not my core competency at all. It is a learned skill. A lot of it is thanks to you. And now I see that you are really excited about AI governance. Curious about the connections, the inspiration, how you see those two come together. What's happening?
Yeah. So I see them as being very related. ESG it's a system of evaluation that you use to measure environmental impact, social responsibility, governance processes. And at the end of the day, it's about creating responsible and resilient and transparent companies. So right now we're at a point where AI is exploding. I'm sure you are all aware of that. And it's going to really change how we work with each other, how we interact with the world at just a massive scale. And when I started to look at this, I realized there are huge ESG implications. On the environmental side, I'm sure we've heard a lot about the energy usage of AI, and also, the explosion in data centers and that kind of thing. There's also, on the flip side of the coin, the potential for AI to help us solve some of the largest environmental problems that humans have not been able to crack the code on our own. In a social capacity, there are risks. You have risk of bias and discrimination. You have risks to fairness. You have risks to inequalities. And governance, I see, is really how we bring those risks, manage those risks, and create a human-centric AI that helps serve people rather than harm the social network that we already have. And in governance, there's always ethics, there's bias, there's transparency. So I see them as very connected.
I wonder, I believe people don't remember sequences, they remember moments. When I tell stories about sort of myself, I usually think about defining moments, and that's how I tell those stories. And I think that's how our memories work. So I'm curious in sort of real life. I mean, you clearly cannot miss AI these days. I mean, you can't miss technology for the last 20 years. I mean, if you have, you ought to open your eyes. Nonetheless, what was the moment that you realized that, oh, it's here, it is here to stay, and the G in ESG is about the governance piece, and that's the connection. I'm just curious, what was the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I started playing around with Gen AI in 2023 when most people did, and I use it in my business and I use it in my personal life. And I always love learning new technologies. So in 2024, I actually sat down and I built my own little baby AI agent, very low powered, but what it did is, if, in case you don't know what an AI agent is, I saw it work on my computer, and it was kind of like, when you call IT and they log into your computer and they're just running everything on their own. That's what the AI agent was doing, as I used it to help me search for cute Boston Terrier outfits. And it was pretty amazing. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is going to really have tremendous impact. And it just hit me in a different way. And I thought, okay, I need to be looking at this from a governance perspective. I need to help ensure that this tremendous possibility we have is really channeled for good.
So did you find the outfit for that beautiful dog of yours?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Scooter's got outfits, and I will say the agent had great taste. It kept things within budget. So, I mean, it's not the most professional use of AI, but
Honestly, that's the use that matters. As much as I love you and I'm a fangirl, I love Scooter. Scooter like has my heart.
yeah. Yeah.
I think he has everyone's heart. What is as you're sort of putting a legal framework and you're seeing the potential of this and finding cute outfit for Scooter, which is really maybe not the most important, but the second important thing
Yeah.
in the world. What is sort of legal and compliance risk, when it comes to AI corporate governance, from your perspective, and when you advise in-house legal leaders? What are the top things that you're flagging and asking them to watch out, and what are you training them about?
Yeah. So first, you really have to watch the regulations. There's a lot of regulatory uncertainty, broad regulation coming out of the EU that will impact in the US. And then you have several states that are either have enacted or are considering regulations. Second, you have the liability risks that come with if you're using AI and you're putting that out into the world, who's going to be responsible for that, and how could you possibly get sued for that? Always a good question for in-house counsel to ask. You have IP. So and I'd love to hear what you have to say on IP and AI, Olga. But just today, I saw there was a case launched in France from authors against Meta for the use of their IP. We're going to see a lot of challenges there. You have data privacy and security is, of course, at the top of the list. And then a lot of consumer protection. And this comes through in the EU AI Act, where you're asking, all right, at what point does a little nudge or, a strategically placed ad turn into something that's manipulative or possibly predatory? So you have a lot of these different legal issues. They're not necessarily new issues for in-house counsel, but you do have to look at these issues with a new and added lens.
Yeah, I think my perspective on a lot of this is that the legal issues are not new. The IP, the security, the privacy, the governance, all these issues, older than me, and I'm not that young. However, what's really new is emergence of new business models and liabilities theories and risk theories. And when that happens, when you have new business model, we as in-house counsel ought to pause. And the reason we need to pause is because we're now dealing with something we haven't seen before, something for which we have not developed a gut instinct, and something for which we don't have a pattern recognition that entirely close to reality. And so when you don't have a playbook, when you haven't seen something entirely like this in the nature before, you ought to pause. When I took my driving lessons, one of the things that instructor taught me was that, hey, you have this natural thing when you see a light in your eyes and you can't see anything, when you have visibility problem, many people will speed because it's scary. But actually slowing down is the safest thing to do. And so that's my perspective on any of those issues. Yes, we've seen a lot of IP disputes and privacy and security and all kinds of stuff in the context of cloud and various other technologies. However, the flavor of today is very different. So slowing down is a thing to do, and really think through what is the new theories of liability and how we should approach that. That's my take. From your perspective, how do you consider managing risks in the context of a business, and especially when you advise general counsel? I do that a lot too. When they sort of look at those novels, what is your sort of step one, two, and three in that risk management in the sort of new conditions?
Yeah. I think you start with, let's not redesign risk management from scratch. So if you have a system for risk management within your company, building AI into that system, into your ERM processes, into your, procurement, your policies is a great place to start. And then I'd also look to AI specific sources. So the NIST framework is great. NIST AI framework is great for this. It has 4 stages: governance, map, measure, manage, which does not make a good acronym. I think that's like GUM or something along those lines. I haven't heard anyone do it, but those are the
Just try when
stages.
you don't like the acronym, I will pronounce it with some, an exotic accent.
Oh,
Uh,
how do you say that? GUM?
I don't know, but we can make it up. Just bring sexy back.
Yeah,
If it doesn't
absolutely.
sound good, like make it sound good.
Yeah.
So we can work on our accent.
Yeah, I definitely have. It took me a little while because it's not a good acronym to kind of get all of those lined up in my head. But I would look at that NIST framework, make sure that you're mapping out what AI you're already using. I guarantee there's already AI in your systems, that you have ways of managing it, that you've done your, standard risk exercise where you put, what's the level of risk on the vertical and what's the likelihood on the bottom, and then you concentrate on the top right hand quarter. So you have to really be aware of the use cases, of the risks, and be managing them proactively within the risk management system that you've already established.
I love it. I love two by twos. They're sort of the easy, most frequent on one side and the risk on the other. Definitely is a helpful way to start. Curious, there's series of risks that sort of we've seen before, just in different flavor. So for example, IP, data, security, privacy, all of those things. And then there's this growing ethics thing. It's not entirely new, but it is new-ish. It is newish to the Office of General Counsel, and frankly, ethics is different from laws and kind of thinking and different from integrity. There's a number of words that we're using in commerce today. And one of those things is around sort of this ensuring ethical use of AI, which is different from all the legal stuff. It sort of goes back to the responsibilities and maybe ties back to your ESG frameworks. I'm curious, how do you have those conversations and how do you help your clients to approach this amorphous thing, ethics, which is more amorphous even than legal, and legal can be pretty amorphous. How do you approach it systematically? And actually, most importantly, so that you can defend it, should you need to defend it, either with a regulator in a lawsuit or something like that. What is the approach to this amorphous thing?
Yeah. Well, I saw a good quote today on LinkedIn, and or it's just kind of a funny thing, but it said, my CEO asked me, what's the legal, what can we do legally here? And I asked my CEO, what does your heart tell you to do? And you do have to understand the technologies. Your heart might not know them, but for an ethical compass, you always have to look at that big picture and ask yourself, what is really the right thing to do here beyond what is the legal thing to do. And I think AI brings in different challenges for that, because there are things you cannot see necessarily without some experimenting and some testing. We saw this a lot with the bias work, where AI was coming back because it was trained on our own human technology, and it was replicating our own biases. It makes the ethical issues in that a little bit more difficult, because you're not managing what humans are necessarily doing. So you have to take a different approach to managing the AI. I also think that there's going to be coming for companies a real ethical issue about how do you transition the workforce. I absolutely believe that there's going to be as many jobs out there as there are today. Humans are great at inventing jobs for themselves, but there's going to, companies aren't going to be able to just, we want to avoid a situation where they're not retraining their people, where they're going into layoffs or something like that. And companies need to get ahead of it and think, okay, how do I bring my workforce along? And if think about what in that sphere, if you're not planning ahead, then you're going to really be running into ethical issues with your workforce.
That's an interesting issue. Actually, let's dive deep, because who bears the cost of retraining is really what's going to come
Mhm.
up in that conversation. That's really sort of a big issue. And I love your comment that humans are really good at inventing jobs for themselves. That's, I guess, kind of true. But I also think AI is really good at inventing jobs for humans because of supervision and all kinds of other things. So I'm just curious, if you're advising executives at a company, whether it's legal executive, HR executives, or chief executives or other executives, about how to think about their humans and how they partner with AI and how they manage the costs and responsibilities, and frankly, relationship with investors, somewhere between the right thing to do and the cost and what's good for the business. Do you have any thoughts of how you systematically make a good decision for everyone involved, and how you do it in a responsible, transparent manner so that folks can plan their futures?
Yeah. Well, there's the old kind of conversation out there with the CFO saying, "Hey, how can we afford to train our people?" And the CEO saying, how can we afford not to train them?" So that's a perspective on kind of costs and AI training. But to be more practical on it, I think it's a matter of companies not necessarily dropping a ton of capital all at one time, but bringing their employees along with it. From a regulatory perspective, if you're subject to the EU Act, you have to have basic AI literacy training. If you are going to be moving forward and using the AI technology at all, you have to be training your employees on how to use it. And I think it's really the biggest challenge will be in change management and bringing your employees along on the journey so that they are open to learning and doing new things. And if the employees are open and learning to do new things, it just makes sense for companies to be on that journey. The one thing, here in the US, it would be great to say, oh, government will do this. Our government's not going to do it. Just a flat kind of watching years of how our government works. We're not going to have a large AI retraining program. So companies are going to have to come together and make these investments. In some ways, it's really similar to what we see with climate change and climate change investments. And the investments that an individual company will make in that area aren't going to stop climate change, but the collective action is where it gets really powerful.
We're coming to the end. I have a few more questions. And I want to encourage folks who are in the room to ask them because now the time to do it because in a few minutes we will be saying goodbyes. But I definitely have lots of questions and I especially want to tap into your experiences of a chief legal officer. And today, I talk to a lot of legal teams. They're under a lot of pressure. And they're under a lot of pressure, yes, advice, to their product or procurement teams. That's usually the primary two ways I interact with AI. And they're also under pressure to innovate and use it in their processes and frameworks and workflows to really be more effective because many CEOs feel the pressure to cut costs. Legal is a big bill. They want the advice to be more timely, all kinds of things. So my question to you, a very simple question. How do you balance this AI governance stuff with what's very clear pressure and important need for legal departments to innovate?
Yeah. Well, first, you really have to take a risk-based approach. You're never going to be able to do everything. So look at where the high risk uses are. It might be in health, it might be in HR, it might be in what the output is from your company and how you're using AI. But really take that risk-based approach and don't try to hammer every nail that you see. Second, be there from the beginning. And I know this is, you write a lot about the role of product counsel, Olga. This is a great place for product counsel to be there from the very beginning, because if you start with those initial investments, the total investment over time, if you're preventing issues, any CLL knows that that is going to be much less time intensive, much less expensive than doing cleanup. Definitely start adopting AI within the legal department. I think there's one of the problems with in-house legal work historically has been that there are a lot of repetitive tasks and that your legal team doesn't necessarily love doing, and there's too much work. So adopting AI within the legal department helps you solve both of those problems. And finally, it's about educating. You need to do a lot of educating around the risks here so that companies know that it's not just business as usual in terms of rolling out this technology, that there are things that are unique that the company needs to work with the legal and compliance professionals to make sure that you get them covered.
All right. I talk to a lot of legal professionals, and the number one question they ask is skills. What do I do today to thrive tomorrow?
Yeah.
What do I develop? And then there's sort of a combination of technical skills and business skills and soft skills. I don't like the term soft skills, but let's use it as a big bucket where a lot of things fall. I'm curious, what is the one or two or three things that you recommend folks when you encounter them in your counseling or in your consulting that they work on today? What is the practical things that they can do to thrive tomorrow?
Yeah. Number one is use the technology yourself and use it not just, what you might have for a business or what your company might have rolled out, but really be on the forefront of it. Like that's one of the reasons I built the AI agent was I wanted to get my hands around, all right, what does this really mean? What does this really look like? And the more that you can find ways, even if it doesn't have a professional purpose, even if you're just, looking for dog outfits, to use the technology in your personal life and to get those skills, it's critical. Second would be follow the industry. It's before you even get to the legal part, knowing what's happening in the industry. The AI industry is important and it changes all the time. I like to follow Hard Fork, which is a podcast that you'll learn what the big actions are. The two hosts are really funny, so it makes it less painful than other podcasts. And then finally, you will need to take some time to learn about the regulations and frameworks in this area. So EU Act, NIST, the Microsoft Responsible AI principles, spending some time with those will help narrow your experience in using the technology and learning about the industry into, okay, what legally do I need to do today?
So, and if you are a leader, GC, CLO, another senior lawyer at a fairly large department, and you need to wrap your mind around AI governance, which I know a lot of folks are doing. That is a very important job we have to do as in-house lawyers. What should you do? I know you mentioned a couple of frameworks. What is your step 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that you set up company for success?
Yeah. So, number one, there should already be, hopefully, at your company, a council or an oversight task force for AI. If there's not, you need to put one of those in place, and it should include a broad variety from the business leaders that are trying to execute to your IT people, and legal and compliance is one seat at that table. You need to be sure that there is a table and then that you are at that table. Second, once you're there, you need to develop the rules of the road. So what is it? How can employees use AI technology? How can they, what is off limit, offline? How are you setting out policies that manage those risks? And third, you need to educate your people. I guarantee, I read a stat the other day that 40% of companies have said nothing about AI. If you said nothing about AI to your employee base, they are then uploading your confidential information on ChatGPT. Not that they want to hurt anything, but they're just getting their jobs done. They don't know that it's harmful. So you have to be proactive in that communication, just like we've learned to be proactive with privacy, so that people know what will flag issues, know what will cause problems, and know what's safe and what they should do.
I love it. Those are really great insight. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, John. Thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Maria, Matt, our friend Matt with whom we spoke before, Veronica, Alejandra. Thank you for being here and supporting the one and only Christine. I am really grateful for the opportunity to talk to you. So thank you so much for doing this important work. And thank you for finding the time to be a fantastic guest.
Well, thank you, Olga, for having me. I have been a fan of Notes to My Legal Self for, gosh, 4 years now. I've been listening to the podcast, so it's a real honor to be a two-time guest here. And I love the show. I love the work you do, and I'm a huge Olga fan as well.
Oh, I heart you too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christine. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.